What the Heck's your source for Warhammer Underworlds and under 30 fighters with the assassin keyword. I'm your co-host Davy, and with me as always, I have my insidious, sneaky co-host Phil. How are you doing, Phil?
I'm doing well.
Yeah,
Insidious and sneaky.
that's
I
right.
like it.
It's because we're down in the Nethermaze, and that's the
Yeah.
context right now. We're recording on the 20th of April, which is just 3 days before Nethermaze and Exiled Dead and Rivals of Harrow Deep go up for pre-order. And we have received preview copies, so that's a thanks to G-Dub. And that's given us a chance to kind of take a look over this and get some content ready for release day. So there is going to be a total downpour of new releases and hopefully a downpour of new content from all the different creators who are dropping stuff at the time. So that is the state we are in. Give me the super broad strokes, Phil. We're going to get into it in a little more detail. This episode is just our first impressions of Nethermaze. We had a chance to play right out of the box head to head, but give me your overall first impression of the Nethermaze release here, and then we'll go through some of our usuals.
Yeah, I think it is one of the more thematic releases that they've ever done, which feels really cool. You get the sense that they really wanted to sort of have the feeling of sort of the gloom and the darkness of the Nethermaze be the sort of focal point of this box, and I think they executed fairly well there. I do think that this is a slightly more involved box than some of the other core boxes. It's not as vanilla, I guess, is a good way to describe it. So whether that's good or bad, I guess we'll sort of see. But overall, I think it does a good job of sort of giving you two warbands that play well out of the box, have lots of tricks, and give more veteran players a lot of depth.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I would say not only did it feel thematic to the setting, but the warbands themselves felt very thematic, and we'll get more into that. But it felt like, here's the thing these warbands want to do, and you are rewarding for the things that it seems like they should want to do. And so I was pretty impressed with that. But more in a second. We'll bang through our usual spots. Community shout outs. Anyone you want to shout out there, Phil?
I just at the moment, I haven't really listened or read any new content, but I know, given how much is going to be coming out in the next few days and how much people are going to be working to get card images and articles and whatnot put up, I appreciate all of you for doing everything that you're doing, and especially people who are working on like deck builders and updating images online so that everybody has a chance to read through these cards before they purchase a box. You're doing the Lord's work here.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And maybe down the line we may get to a point where we are able to blog some of those, but it just feels like such a repetition of effort that we'd rather put our energy into some other things, which we're gonna bring you today. So for me, I did listen. The fellows from Battle Mallet are back in the mix. They've just released a couple episodes recently. The most recent one, though, being a review of the Maze Breachers Rivals deck, and that is a release that it came out in White Dwarf, so no new cards, but just a assembly of existing universals into another Rivals deck. And they kind of break it down, highlights what they like about it, who they think it would be good with, and it really nests in nicely with their Rivals series, where they went warband by warband through some of the recent seasons of what they thought made for good Rivals, like if you were picking things up, basically reviewing warbands from a Rivals perspective. So we actually talked about taking a look at that Maze Breachers, because we didn't know, as of our last recording, we did not know that we'd be doing this new stuff already. So the chance that we'll get back around to that is relatively low. Never say never, but it's out there already. Somebody's already done it, and they've done it really well. So
Yeah.
go check out Battle Mallet. Um, Phil, what the heck
Yeah.
is going on with you?
Well, besides having to try and review 3 new releases in a few days,
Yeah.
continuing to look at what we want to do for champions sort of going forward. I've been working on some stuff with the lizards again, just sort of remembering why I love them so much. Actually just played them as rivals the last time that we had our local league, and did a really good job with just their rivals deck, which surprised me because I
Yeah.
remembered their rivals deck as being bad for some reason. And then uh, preparing for our tournament. We're going to be hosting a tournament on May 1st, doing Rivals Plus.
May
And
1st,
so,
Mox Mania. If you are hearing this and you are anywhere in the Midwest, within driving range of Madison, Wisconsin, come see us. If you listen to this on the day of release, it'll be 1 week plus 1 day. We're looking at
yep.
11 a.m. to like 4:30 p.m. And we are looking to be as beginner friendly as possible. So if you got somebody that you could convince to come play, that either has never played but has been thinking about it, or played back in Shadespire and has been wanting to dip back in, we're gonna have war bands for people who show up that want to try it out but don't have a war band in hand. And we're this is a recruiting beginner friendly event. We already have like four or five out of towners, and a bunch of in towners, three or four out of towners, and a bunch of in towners. So we're pretty stoked at what it looks like it's going to be. So we'll have some door prizes as well, and those will also be new player oriented, things that will help out a new player. So if you win it and you're a veteran player, we may give you something to help you recruit. So like an essentials pack or
Yeah,
something like that, where you have something to hand somebody who's just getting into the game. That's what we want to do. Grow this game. That's our target.
absolutely.
Yeah.
How about you? What's
Oh
been going
yeah.
on?
I was an assembling fool. So we got and this is tough because we got the package arrived like moments before I left the house last week. A few days ago, when I was heading out for our weekly league night. And I was like, "Oh my god, here it is!" Everything I could do to not like try to open it like at the red lights on the way, um, but wanted to get it assembled so that you and I could play. We played a rivals match with the box, but that required assembling the figures and all that sort of thing. But we got to do that, and that was kind of the primary focus of my hobby. I was hoping to do a little bit more, but real life kind of intervened. I got a sick kid. I had a plumbing disaster. So, but at least we got some done. So enough
Yeah.
to bring you this episode, which is our impressions of that Nethermaze box set, the Eshin versus Shadeborn. So
Yeah.
yeah, uh, let's get into it. What do you say?
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
I think we should.
All right. So, main topic, we got the box breakdown here. So here's the essential box. There's a lot of things that are going to be familiar to me. People playing this for a long time. If you're not, this is going to have everything you need to be able to play you plus one more person. Everything you need to play that initial game and then grow it a little bit from there, because there's the same number of universals as there were in the Hero Deep. So it's a pretty healthy dose of universals and Grand Alliance cards in there. A lot to digest. So a lot of deck building options when you're ready to hit that spot. There's all the tokens, all the boards. There are dice. The dice changed colors, man. what
Yeah.
what did you think of this?
I thought it was great. I mean, the very simple, just white and black starter dice has always been just sort of, it's like, yep, it's solid, it makes sense. Like this is what I would expect. But using the color palette of the season definitely feels more thematic, and I thought it was really cool. They did like
Yeah.
a purple for the magic dice, which I think is
Yeah.
actually a really great choice.
Yep.
The light blue never quite did it for me, but I
Yeah.
very much enjoy these purple ones.
The only thing I'll say is that the different colors threw me a little bit. So there was more than once where I definitely picked up nice to like, all right, I'm gonna make an attack
Yeah,
roll.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like, those are channels. That is not gonna help us out in this situation.
yeah.
So,
There's
but
something to
yeah,
be said for that simple white black. It's like, yep,
right. But I'm a fan. It was cool.
yeah,
And we've already talked about this. This felt kind of immersed in its setting, and that was part of it there.
very
Um,
much.
I'll talk to the models as the person who assembled them.
Yeah,
They're incredible, right? Like we both got to see them, got to play with them. Uh, the movement, the dynamic nature of the poses and everything was pretty impressive. Um, the only caveat I'll give is that they are potentially real fragile. There were a couple breaks on the sprue for me, which I was able to repair without too much
yeah,
difficulty. And I would say if you are listening to this as you are assembling your miniatures, which I imagine more than a few might be doing. If you're doing so, they are push fit. As advertised, they don't require glue. I still glue them anyway. If you're doing that push, just make sure everything's lined up. And if a firm press doesn't seem to be closing pushing the two pieces together, take another look because you're probably not lined up right. Every time they pushed together and I had it lined up correctly, it was pretty smooth. So if it feels like you got to push hard, you're not lined up right, and take another look. But the weapons, the limbs, the capes, all that stuff. There's a lot of like spindly, fragile things which look amazing, but if you end up pushing on the wrong piece and pushing too hard, you're gonna snap or
yeah.
bend something. So um, it's take your time with it, and you won't be disappointed. They're super awesome, and they deserve a little of your time to come together nicely. So
What would you say some of the most dynamic poses we've ever gotten?
yeah, I mean, you got Skaven dashing along walls. You got one leaping and dropping smoke bombs. You have, swirling shadow capes going all over the place. They're pretty spectacular. Like
Yeah.
for a game where I've been consistently happy and impressed with the miniature range, like this is something again above like another. This is they're at the top of their game making these ones, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
I,
So.
I I definitely agree. I mean, like if the models are gonna be the thing that gets you into the game because it catches your attention, like these ones do the job
Mhm.
because they are very impressive.
Absolutely. We did play the two warbands together. We're going to get into that in a second. I tried to go line by line through the rule book. I we probably owe a little bit down the line with some of the background. Uh,
Oh
and
yeah,
the
yeah,
very short is that the Nethermaze is below Harrowdeep. So Harrowdeep itself is a realm, not a full blown realm, but like a region that exists below a spot where some outcast Ideneth had been sent, and they took in some members, some witch elves that were fleeing Marathi. Uh, they built their outcast enclave inadvertently above Harrowdeep. They go into Harrowdeep, and then below Harrowdeep there's Nethermaze, and the tempting thing for these outcast Ideneth is that there's these voices calling them, saying like, "There's a way to no longer be outcast, to no longer," and that's a problem for Ideneth in general.
Mm,
Kind of escaping the outside world, and these voices are promising more than that. Um, but those happen to be, as far as we can tell, shadow demons. They,
yeah. Seems
uh,
fine.
yeah, from the Orb Duplicitus, the shadow, one of the moons of
Hmm.
Ulgu, and it's not great. You can get all the way through the maze, and if you do, there is some undefined terrible cost with escaping the Nether Maze if you make it all the
Yeah,
way through.
yeah.
Canonically, for those interested, there is one of the short stories, one of the little blurbs has Iron Soul, uh, of Iron Soul's Condemners. Their leader makes it out. She comes stumbling through. She thinks she's died. She thinks she's suffered her final death, uh, but then realizes that she's out in the sunshine. She's like, "Oh, I made it," but there's like whispering in her head, and she looks down, and even in the light of Hish's sun, she's not casting a shadow. So
Yeah.
I don't know what the bigger
It's, uh,
implications are for AOS, but
yeah, it's
yeah.
it's an interesting one. I mean, the story is compelling. It's a little strange that it seems that the fighters aren't cursed anymore, or at least not the
Right.
same way.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Hopefully we'll get some more details about that because right now it feels undefined.
Yeah, well, what you're referring to is that Nagash in the Greater Age of Sigmar storyline was defeated slash killed slash probably not dead forever,
Yeah.
um, but that broke the power of his curse, and so the Shade Glass curse. There is Shade Glass all over Harrow Deep. The shattering of Nagash's power scattered it far and wide, and so there is Shade Glass present throughout Harrow Deep, but the curse is apparently broken. If you're wondering why your fighters keep fighting again and again, well, it's probably the illusions, the maddening,
Yeah.
impossible geometries of Harrow Deep and the Nethermaze. Yeah, the setting is super creepy, super uh, like unsettling in an eldritch horror sort of way, and that's pretty
Hmm.
great too. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but yeah, so I got on that because I was saying I tried to read the rule book line for line all the way through, and I was trying to find any changes, and I could only come up with two. Besides the background, I could only come up with two changes, and these are as follows. There is a term that is now defined that is large fighters. Large fighters are fighters that have 5 or more wounds, and it doesn't seem to say like start with 5 or more. So you could start at one category and become a large fighter by putting a great fortitude on Garrick or something like that. And all of a sudden, Garrick is a large fighter. Large fighters are worth 2 glory bounty.
Hmm.
That existed at the 6 wound threshold in Harrowdeep, and now exists at the 5 wound threshold. So, what's your take on
Yeah.
that, Phil?
I think that's going to end up being a bigger deal than we probably realized. So to me, it feels like they're continuing to try and find that balance point of how do we have these thematically large fighters like ogres and trolls without them being oppressive because they're so hard to kill.
Sure.
Obviously, by moving this down, it suggests that they didn't think that having the 2 glory bounty on 6 wound fighters was enough.
Yep.
Um, but I think since we often see +1 wounds going on 4 wound fighters, that it suddenly means that the calculus for those upgrades has to be uh, reconsidered pretty heavily because 2 glory is a big swing.
Mm.
Um, so that's, I think, why I suspect it will be a bigger deal than we're probably realizing because I think there's sort of cascading effects there that are hard to sort of wrap your mind around without playing with it.
Hmm.
Um, but I expect that will come into play quite a bit. I think it's a good change, though. What do you think?
I think it's good. I mean, at its core, if you look at what it takes to kill, I don't know, Turash versus what it takes to kill uh, Hard Skull, like it's so much so much more work to kill Hard Skull, and it's kind of silly that it gives you the same reward for killing the one versus the other. Now
Yeah.
there's like onboard rewards, like if you drop Ard Skull, you've dropped a third of the warband, and if you drop Turash, the Eyes of the Nine player probably was like, I wasn't using that guy anyway, like doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
um, so there's some of those factors, and but I mean, I think the difference between 2 and 1 glory on a single fighter, in many games it won't matter, in some games it will. But I think it's fair. I'm excited to see it, and I like it's going to put some pressures on deck building. If you have a lot of 4 wound fighters, like, well, do I want to take things that bump them to 5?
Yeah.
If I'm playing, I don't know, if I reach back to something like uh, privateers or whatever, profiteers, I should say. The They have I think it's called Magmalt Draft, which is a one-time use upgrade that reacts and reduces damage by 1. So it's effectively +1 wound with some corner case differences.
Hmm.
But there you can effectively get another wound without actually increasing your wounds characteristic 1. So, um, those warbands that have access to that sort of upgrade, maybe more interested in that to get to kind of a stealth 5 wounds without giving up extra bounty or
Yeah.
whatever. So
Yeah, that's the sort of thing that I was thinking of. Is it's
yeah,
like it's going to cause people to reevaluate even their most basic assumptions about how they want to build decks, which
yeah,
I think is good.
yeah,
Like we've seen over the last 3 seasons, I guess, where people are just, it's like, well, I've got this fighter who starts at 5 wounds and I'll pump
yeah,
him up to 8, and then it's like,
yeah.
well, can I even kill this fighter?
Sure. Well, an example to that is like there are some decks that really want to stack upgrades that increase wounds, and I'm not familiar with all those. I am, but like not in an instant, because sometimes I'll be like, well, why in the heck do these people have silent armor in this warband? Like that doesn't seem. I don't even remember what silent armor does. And I look and I'm like, I mean, that's not great. Oh, 2 silent relics plus 1 wound. Okay, I get
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
So
yeah.
like you get there eventually. Um, yeah, I mean, I think you're maybe all in or don't care about it,
Yep,
so
yep, yeah,
yeah, so cool. Not super dramatic, but meaningful is what I'd say.
definitely.
Especially if you're crushes, because
Yeah,
often all
yeah. I
three of your
think
guys are giving up too.
feels like
So
crushes get hit pretty hard with this.
yeah. Um, all right. Well, and the only other significant thing is I noticed, and this is relatively hard to find. I imagine they'll make some announcement about it, but if you have knockback on your attack, you are able to drive back guard. And I think this is actually not in the knockback rule; it's in the guard rule. It says guard. They
Oh
say can't be
man.
driven back unless the attacker had the knockback rule. Like, oh,
Hmm.
um,
Interesting.
yeah. And what I like this, right? Like knockback has for a very long time been pretty underrated, and I mean not underrated. It's been correctly rated low, you might say.
Yeah.
um, some people would say it was underrated through some of Beastgrave, because the ability to knock back two with the prevalence of lethals meant that you could often drop somebody into a lethal unexpectedly with that. So knockback was in some cases a stealth +1 damage. But once lethals disappeared, kind of needs something else to make it relevant again. And I think being able to drive back somebody on guard is actually a really good one. It's an interesting development, right? Because the
Hmm.
origin of guard was it did not have a drive back restriction. It was just
Yeah.
increased your defense to both shields and dodge. Um, so it's kind of cool to see both those rules. Like, well, let's make guard more relevant. Like, oh wow, no dryback is actually really really good. Um, and so you can make knockback better by taking away that really really good benefit of guard.
Yeah, for sure. I I think there's potentially a few different things to do with this now. Um, and I think that positioning is pretty important in the game right now. So
Yeah,
the ability to drive people around, sort of readjust the board state is probably pretty good. Um, but it still has the caveat of the fighter has to survive for knockback to ever take effect. So sometimes it's probably just better to kill them rather than to worry about driving them around. But
sure.
we'll see.
Yeah,
Um, it's always a change that I'd hoped that they would do for knockback, is that like it gives you some additional push even if you don't hurt the fighter. But uh, that's wishful thinking. I don't think
yeah.
that's ever going to change.
Well, I mean, it has right here, because as I read it, if you have knockback and you tie on the attack defense
Oh,
roll, you'll be able to drive back
sure,
the
if they're
defender.
on
So
guard.
if
Yeah,
they're on
yeah,
guard, yeah. So
yeah.
something.
Something.
Yep. But that's it. And honestly, I'm kind of relieved. I think there were a lot of changes with Harrow Deep, like still kind of settling in with the delve cover sort of thing, and I'm happy to give it a little more room to breathe.
Yeah,
It'd
yeah,
be a
for
shame if
sure.
we went 6 months and done with it. So let's let it ride and see what we can do.
Yeah.
So
And I hope that
uh,
that continues, that
yeah,
like they realize that doing a full year cycle for core rules is probably the right choice, but then still having these new 6 month releases uh, is probably a good way to get product to people.
Yeah. Well, and while we're on that topic, I'll give a tip of the hat to Skylar, who is the one who made this concept kind of familiar to me. We were talking about um, the advantages of having a rotation schedule, having these 6-month seasons. And here's the deal: like, if you are rotating, and we don't know at the time of recording, we don't know what rotation is going to be. So we, might come that you're listening to this and you just found out that what would be Dire Chasm has rotated, or you might find out that Dire Chasm is with us for a while longer.
Yeah.
Um, but if they can get into this situation of 6-month boxes, then you basically have 4 sets of cards, 4 sets of universals, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Until now, we've been on 2. And when one would rotate, when you're at the very beginning of a new season, like when you hit the very beginning of Dire Chasm and Night Vault has just rotated out, your card pool just got cut in half. Your universal card pool just got decimated, and
Yeah.
it's real tough building. And also, whatever warbands are at the end of that season, they only have a short while before the next season arrives. They have a relatively short time to operate with a full set of universals. If you are going with 4 half-year seasons, then at any one time you only drop in 3/4 of the universal pool, and that keeps a more sort of steady state sort of thing. And I kind of like that idea. I like it not being. I like change, like losing 1/4 of your cards and regaining 1/4 of your cards at the same time. That's a big flux. It's
Yeah.
better than, I think, than wiping out a huge portion of it and then scrabbling for scraps in the meantime.
I agree. I think what we've seen a lot of the early days of Harrow Deep has been suboptimal.
Yeah.
Like this has been an especially, we've talked about it before. We don't need to go through the whole reasoning now again, but like, there's some hidden restrictions in the actual card pool to make it even smaller than it would be. And so it's like, man, we're like really picking through the scraps to try and build interesting decks, and largely what that means is that you get a lot of decks that look similar, and you don't
Yep.
really want that. You'd like diversity, which is hopefully what this can do. But like we said, we don't actually know what's going to happen yet. We could
Yeah.
we could end up losing all of Dire Chasm and be in an incredibly strange world for a little while, but
Sure.
we'll see.
Yep. But if that's one of the reasons for what they're doing, I think it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that about covers the big picture stuff. We're gonna talk universals at some point. I don't think it's gonna be today. I think we're gonna run a little short on time.
Yeah.
But suffice to say, my impression of the most recent universals means there's a lot of benefit to standing on cover, and there's a lot of penalties to standing on cover, and that's going to be an interesting back and forth that we'll talk more about.
Yeah. And I think so obviously we get two more boards. So I guess 4 sides.
Yep.
And
All
I
of which have a
believe,
lethal.
yeah,
Right?
that's the thing that stood out to me, is that they added a lethal on all the boards, which
Yeah.
we did not see before. And I kind of wonder if they realized that like they pulled back from lethals too much. And it was like it just completely disappeared from the game.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to know, like, is that going to be a theme going forward? Are we going to try and have lethals show up in most boards just so that it's at least present?
Yeah.
But overall, they seem like pretty good boards, fairly balanced. Which I like. I think they've had a number of situations where the boards end up being very like skewed to one play style, and these ones feel more like middle of the road for everybody.
Right. All right. Well, we are going to give first impressions of the 2 warbands that released with this, and these impressions are based off of a game having played with the rivals decks against each other. I took over Slithale Shadestalker's Shadeborn, and you had what are those dudes called?
Yeah, it's Slink, Skittershank,
Clawpack, Skittershank's Clawpack. right?
Clawpack. Yeah. I was
From the
like, I don't
clan
actually
section.
know what they're. Yeah.
Um,
Clawpack. Sure.
yeah, and basically, I'd assembled them and then kind of pitched it to you. Like, what do you want to run? You picked the claw pack. What made you jump that way?
um. So like I said, I felt like these two war bands really seemed to lean into their theme. And so, for folks who aren't aware, the Eshin group of rats are the uh, sort of lore faction that these guys are from. And those particular Skaven are all supposed to be these very like mercenary, backstabbing assassin types. And so the theme here is that that's what they want to do. They have, like basically a contract out to assassinate leaders. And so their whole warband is designed around this concept of like, you're going to kill the enemy leader, which has been a thing from the very early days of Shadespire, where it's
Mhm.
like every single faction had their end phase if a leader was killed in the previous round.
Yeah,
And,
felt like it. There was a
and
universal there,
yeah,
assassination
and it was just always like, this isn't very good. Like,
and the
why?
timing was just so hard, right?
Yeah. I mean, one, it was almost always the hardest fighter to kill. And then two, like the fact that they made it so it was like in this round, it's like, oh, well,
Right.
if you just draw it in the wrong round, then you can't
Yeah.
even score it.
You
So,
either can't kill the guy or you already killed him.
yeah, right. So I just really wanted to see A, did they actually execute on the mission that they set out for? And then B, I thought that they just seemed like they'd be fun out of the box because it's like, yeah, we're just going to go chop stuff up, which is always kind
Right.
of fun.
Right.
Uh, you had the Shadeborn. I keep wanting to say
Yeah.
Shadowborn, but they're
I mean,
Shadeborn.
I'm poisoning the well here by having actually said that. Uh, but yeah, the Shadeborn.
Yeah.
I'll admit I did not pay as much attention as I wish I had when this faction released for Warcry. But you have a bunch of Canite Shadow Stalkers, so like shadow oriented devotees of Marathi, the Witch
Hmm.
Queen, new goddess. And what little I knew about these before we started playing was that they had the ability to like teleport between cover hexes slash have a lot of movement tricks, and that was really exciting for me. I really like that kind of tricky movement play. So
Yeah.
I was excited to try them out, even though as a general rule, I'm not super stoked about elves. But yeah, I was in on these guys. So I would have been happy to play either, but I was glad you snapped up the rats because I wanted to check these ones out.
Cool.
Um, let's for folks who are sitting there opening their box or waiting for it to arrive after they pre-ordered, or no, gosh, I'm wrong. I talked about people as this is going to come out. This is coming out on pre-order day. So I
Yeah.
talked about
Yeah.
people like listening as they
Cool.
assembled. It still might be the case if they're not listening right away, but I should say if you're eagerly awaiting and trying to decide which faction is going to be the one you jump for, let's give a quick rundown. So
Sure.
we're since we're already talking about the Shadeborn a little bit, I'll go for it here. These are the ones I ran. You have four fighters. The leader, Slethale, is got 4 health. This is the uninspired stat line. 4 health, 4 move, 2 dodge, with a range 2 smash, 2 damage weapon. And that weapon has the ability Malleable, which we've not seen before. Malleable, when you declare your attack action, you get to decide whether you have Cleave or Ensnare. That is pretty rad.
It's
So
pretty mean when you're in rivals.
pretty accurate. And then Slethale has an ability, Shadow Ambush, which is, I'd say, faction defining.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and Slethale is the only one who has it uninspired. Everyone else inspires and then gains this ability. But Slethale, when this fighter starts a charge action in a cover or edge hex that is not a starting hex, you can resolve the move of that charge action by placing the fighter in another cover or edge hex. So this is crazy. You can teleport like no one is safe if you are in a cover if you're in a cover or edge hex that is not a starting hex.
Yeah.
I think they must have figured it was like too instantly potentially lethal if you let them be in a starting hex, because people would just start on the edge of the board and then teleport all
Yeah.
over. And
Yeah.
I get that. And so it doesn't feel busted. It feels real powerful though.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's worth noting, she also has the fly keyword,
Yeah,
which is just
I
an
don't think it was at
icon.
all relevant in our game, but it's totally a thing. So
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess just as a reminder to folks, they have codified a number of things in just images now instead of using words, and
yeah,
so remember to check those because
sure.
sometimes it's very easy to just be like, "Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
wing symbol is on there. That means that they can fly."
Well, it's like if we go back to the pirate ogre, right? Like black powder, his monkey is not a beast, which means he can carry
Yeah.
weapon upgrades. So
Right.
it's easy stuff to overlook. The other fighters here, you've got Velissa and Drusilla, who are the two sort of, I'm almost calling them lieutenants. They start on an unfortunate one dodge, three health, real vulnerable.
Yeah. It's pretty
Um,
scary.
they got a defensive bonus of Shadow Mark, which is you can reroll one dice in this fighter's defense roll if the fighter's in a cover hex. So man, that's important because it gives you an extra face of the dice. If you are out in the open, you're on one dodge. If you're in cover, you're effectively on a one block rerollable, which is
Yeah.
much better.
Yeah.
Velissa is a has a combo set up, so three Fury, one damage on the first, and then two Smash, one damage on the second. Um, what that's significant for is like one damage upgrade for her is effectively like a +2 potential damage in a round.
Hmm.
Uh, Drusilla is range 2, which is nice. 2 range, 3 Fury, 2 damage. Drusilla inspires to 3 damage, which is pretty significant. They both inspire to have 2 dodge, and then they lose their reroll. Um, so,
Yeah.
but they gain the cool charge ability. And then you have Sylark Greyblood. Canonically, he is the lowest ranking in the Canite Shadow Stalkers thing. I think in the Matriarchal Society of Marathis, I don't know, Marathi's new goddom. um,
Yeah, you got there.
yeah, the dudes are on the bottom end. Sylark is like your utility piece, right? So he's got a fine up close attack, 2 smash, 2 damage. He's got a hand crossbow for 3 range, 3 fury, 1 damage. Um, and then he also has a spell action for just a channel. If cast, choose one enemy fighter with no wound counters within 4 hexes of the caster and or in a cover hex. So if they're in a cover hex, your range is unlimited. You still got to see him because it's a spell. But you can see all the way across the board and smoke somebody for a damage, which is important because all these fighters
Mm. Yeah.
inspire if they make an attack action that targets an enemy fighter with 1 or more wound counters, which is a real interesting inspire condition.
Very.
In the quote unquote one shot meta, wanting to set up something where you have somebody who's wounded before you go after him again is a very, very different tack to take. So
Yeah, very. I mean, I don't not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I mean, even just looking at Psylark, it's kind of like ping damage is probably going to be something that's very important for this warband. And so we haven't seen a lot of ping damage, probably not since Beastgrave, right? So
it's been a hot minute since we saw much of it,
yeah,
but it's here now. These guys have it. Some of the universals in Exiled Dead and this set it involves some ping damage, whether it be from spells or from just straight up gambits. So I think that's how important you find the inspire is going to feed into um, feed into your deck building a lot, and it's going to get you to those kills. Because like Drusilla getting a chance to inspire, like it's all it's a weird puzzle to put together, and I found myself doing it on the fly, even with just the rivals deck. So
yeah,
um, that is the core of those fighters. Thematically, this is a warband that Cares about attacking somebody who's already wounded. Um, and that ping damage that Psylark has, I really like that because it's very powerful, but it has a very big downside, which is they have to be unwounded, right? So this is the one
Mm-hmm.
who's setting up the inspire for other people. Um, and if you think about like that handbow thing, so say somebody's 3 away, you've got a 3 fury 1 damage shot at them. That is not as likely as your 67%, your 2/3 chance for the Dark Lamprey spell action to go off. So my first instinct was like, oh, there's only a 2 and 3 chance for this to go off. I'm like, well, that's actually pretty accurate when you put it up against like a handbow.
Yeah.
So yeah, never mind. Um, so they care about that. Their cards really care about, or some of their in faction objectives really care about people being vulnerable, which is to say, fighters are down to just their last wound. So either they'll get bonuses to hit, or they'll score some of their objectives off of leaving somebody vulnerable, or standing next to somebody who's vulnerable at the end of the round, or killing somebody who's vulnerable. Um, that's a very counterintuitive mechanic for me, because like your instinct is to finish people off, and that happened to me in our game where I got one of your minions, one of your little guys. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I chipped the damage off him. He's vulnerable. I have these things that'll score off of killing him, but why don't I just kill him? Like that takes one of Phil's activations off the board. And I think it ended up being the wrong move, all told, although it's easier to say that in retrospect, but they
Yeah.
care a lot about that. And then obviously they care a ton about being in or attacking into cover hexes. Like they
Yes.
thrive off of those, and that is the core of what they do. They can do all kinds of cool tricks. They have ways to create shadow tokens on themselves. For folks who have seen the previews, you'll have seen the we're going to say ruthless aim, which has a reaction to give her a shadow counter. Those counters clear, so what they do is they give you during the action phase the ability to be in cover, which is powerful for a number of reasons. Some of your tricks, some of your defensive stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't stay through to the end phase, so they're not going to help you score things like Fearless Seekers or something like that. So it's a significant difference. But I feel like that is the overall theme of these. Do you have anything to add to these guys as far as that goes?
I don't think so. I mean, like it really does seem like what they want you to do is to stand in cover, hurt, like punish other people for being in cover, and slowly chip away at your opponents. Um, and I, I'm a little confused about the vulnerable thing too.
Mm, yeah,
Like I know they probably wanted to be able to push that mechanic, but like on the whole, I don't know that in a championship format it actually makes a lot of sense. I think leaving anybody alive is putting yourself at pretty great risk.
yeah,
So we'll see. Uh, could definitely be surprised. I guess the reward just has to be large enough, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah. Yeah, I had
um,
one round where, again, it was the round that I decided to kill one of your little guys instead of leave him vulnerable. So I did not score an objective that would said, "Is there a vulnerable fighter?"
mhm.
Which, in retrospect, like the kill is worth 1 glory, leaving him alive was worth 1 glory, and then knowing what I drew into, which was kill somebody who was vulnerable for a surge and finish the round next to somebody who's vulnerable for 2. I went into a one round where I was like, wow, everything I have cares about somebody vulnerable. That's going to be a problem for me. So,
Yeah. Well, and I suppose that's also part of just knowing the decks. When you just
yeah,
pull everything out of the box and play, it's like, oh, actually,
yeah,
these sort of subvert your expectations a little bit. And
yeah.
uh,
So what we want to do here, because we're just doing first impressions, we just wanted to give each of us give a favorite card, favorite objective, favorite gambit, and favorite upgrade from each faction. So, Phil, you played against them. What? And as usual, I'll give the caveat: when we say favorite here, we're saying a card that we want to talk about. It might
yeah,
not be the most powerful. It might not be the best, but it's a card we think is cool. So,
sure.
give me any category you want. Throw one at me.
I'll start with an objective, since that's where I like to start thinking about warbands.
Sure.
I don't know how good this is, but I think it has the potential to be good. So this is all is shadow. Um, so this is a duel. He has a third end phase. You score this if you have 2 or more friendly fighters that are each in cover hexes or edge hexes, and no friendly fighters are in your territory. So essentially, this is a conquest with an additional caveat, but it scores for 3.
Is it conquest or is it denial?
It should be conquest because it's no
Okay.
friendly fighters are in your territory. So
No,
you'd
it's
have to
denial.
have all your
Oh, friendly
fighters
fighters. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
friendly.
So you could
Yeah.
get them into.
So you have all
Oh,
your
interesting.
fighters
All right.
in enemy territory
Yep.
in edge hexes or cover hexes, and then you can score for 3.
Sure.
I think the potential here being third end phase for 3 is that you could have just 2, um, and that makes it sort of an easy score. Of course, as you mentioned, you don't exactly have the toughest fighters in the world though, so it might be very
Ooh.
difficult to actually get there. But if you can just leave 2 alive, that's 3 glory, and that's a pretty big swing.
Mm. Yeah. I will say in our game, I ended up drawing into it early and ditching it, but I definitely read it as a denial equivalent. So,
Hmm.
um, I there's a lot to process when you're going
Yeah,
through
yeah,
the
yeah.
first time. I thought maybe their most powerful one is Coiling Darkness, and this is also an end phase. It's a 2 glory, and as a duel, all you have to do is have 2 or more friendly fighters are in cover hexes, and one of those fighters made an attack action in this round. I mean, that is
Yeah,
just like do
that
what you want to do, get extra glory for having done it.
very, very good. Probably an auto include, I would assume.
I mean, it seems like if you're not doing that, then what are you doing? So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you decided not to play cover, I guess, at all, which
yeah,
sure, I guess.
yeah. Oh gosh, I should have included this in the playstyle. They are all assassins. I don't think we mentioned that,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
that is very significant. Obviously, they that opens up a whole lot of cards. Any card that refers to assassin has all of a sudden got a ton of redundancy with them. So
Yeah.
that's cool.
There's not a ton of them. I did go and look up to see, okay, what does care about being an assassin right now?
Yeah,
And it's just a handful of things so far, but you know, we're gonna probably see more of it.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, but even the small cases, like there's one in Cold Blood, which is a
yeah,
surge for 1,
get a
kill
kill.
somebody if you are not wounded, or kill somebody if you're an assassin. That's actually a pretty good surge. Like,
Yeah,
okay, did I kill somebody with an attack action? I'm going to score the surge. Like, there's very few caveats on that. That's pretty powerful. So,
yeah, it's solid.
um, all right, objectives. Throw me Gambit or an upgrade. What do you got?
Sure. So gambits, I like vanish into gloom.
Mm,
Um, so this is one where you choose a friendly fighter with no charge tokens, and then you get to place the chosen fighter in an empty cover hex. So specifically having to teleport into a cover hex, um, and then you give them a charge token. If the chosen fighter was in a cover hex when you chose them, though, you only give them a move token.
tasty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So board wide teleporting, you could very easily set up this teleport in the when you're placing boards and deciding where you want to place cover hexes, you could sort of set things up to be like, okay, I need to have these teleport pads. So I'm going to make sure I have one in an advantageous position, and then I mean, like, pull this off from cover to cover, like during your opponent's power step, and
Yep.
then suddenly you're just in position to like poke for 2 damage or shoot for 1. And uh, man, I don't know, that feels very strong to me. Um, and I'm sure it will catch people out
Yeah.
because all of a sudden the whole board state shifts.
What I love about it is that the only person that can't use it is somebody with a charge token. So
Yep.
if you can move a fighter into, like, my first activation, I get to go step into a cover hex, and now that fighter is available to get. They'll get a second move, but who
Mm-hmm.
cares? They can
Yeah.
get dropped somewhere, and that just gives an option. And so if you see me move somebody into a cover hex right off the gate, you're like, okay, well now I got to worry about every single one of my cover hexes as being somewhere that
Yeah.
that one of these fighters could teleport to. I think I did not actually get to draw this card in our game. It was one of my bottom 4 or 5, but I think there's huge potential for like real cool plays that you could pull off with this.
Very, very high sort of level card here, I think.
Yeah.
How about you? Any gambit that really stood out to you?
So, obviously, in the same vein as that is Smoke and Mirrors. Most people have seen this. It was on the Warhammer Communities um, preview where you swap 2 fighters as long as one was in a cover hex. There are so many cool things you can do that.
It's
In,
ridiculous.
in ours, I charged Drusilla, the range 2 fighter. I think I scored a kill. I killed one of your little guys with some other. Oh no, I killed someone bigger, some extra
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
shenanigans. Then I use this then and swap Drusilla, who is not yet inspired or whatever, to further back to a safer spot, and then brought my leader up, who is also range 2, and then is there with the ability to freshly charge. So
Yeah.
um, there's just a ton of potential with that. As long as you got 2 fighters, it's going to be cool.
Yeah, and then just remembering from how it felt when you did it, it was like after you charged, I was kind of thinking, okay, well now that fighter is there and I know I can start to like set up some stuff with that fighter, and then all of a sudden you're like, and they're going to go all the way to the back of the board, and then I'm going to have this fighter without any move tokens come up to the front, and it's like, oh boy. Recalibrate here really quick, because all of a
Yeah,
sudden I've got a fresh fighter ready to go right up
yeah.
front.
And this warband's got a bunch of real strong gambits. I think there's one that I know I already talked about the one, but there's one more I want to talk about. This Shade Stalker Darts. There is a card,
Demands.
Improvised Blow, I believe it is, with the not Castigator, with Iron Soul's Condemners, which lets somebody make a range 1 3 fury 1 damage headbutt, basically.
Yeah, really
Uh,
bad.
this is that. I mean, you say bad, but like 1 extra attack, and if you've got upgrades on
Well,
like great strength or whatever, then uh, it's almost like this potentially more than ping. Here, this is range 3 3 fury 1 damage. It has to be used with Drusilla or Velissa. Um, so it's a 1-time attack action that happens in the
but
power step. Uh, it's a ping that's not guaranteed to go off, but here's why it's real significant. It has so many uses. Like you use this and you do the last damage to somebody, which is what I did. I finished off
yep.
one of your big Skaven with this, not your boss, but managed to throw dart. But I also was weighing some other options. I was like, well, I could use this to chip somebody else so that they are then available to be and to, if I can peel 1 wound off somebody somewhere else, then I can set up the inspire. What this was actually able to do is I'd already made a successful attack. I'd attacked that fighter who was trapped, and then this was like, basically, you can almost think of this as an inspiration card. So like, hey, is there
Yeah.
somebody who's already wounded? This will inspire Drusilla or Velissa just by playing it, because you're going to make an attack. They're already wounded. You're inspired. Boom, done.
Yeah.
And you may get the extra bonus of damage. I really like the design of this card because it's really powerful, really flexible, and then limiting it to just these 2 fighters is a really good call. And that makes it not busted, but like really good. So it's a,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of card I'm excited about existing.
Very much so. I'd like to see more stuff like that. I So I said that the one for Iron Souls, it's like, oh, that's bad. The reason I said it was bad is because it's a range 1.
Yep.
You have to already be adjacent to an opponent. And
Yeah.
usually when you're doing that, it's because you ran up to somebody and smashed them from a charge.
Yep.
And hopefully when you're doing that, you're killing them.
We're killing them or driving them back, right?
Or
Because
driving, yeah.
you don't want to get counterattacked. So like if you want to use that card, it means that you had to leave them adjacent to you to be able to make that improvised blow. This one, you can charge, attack, drive them back, and then still throw a knife at them.
Yeah. Or even just like be standing somewhere on a cover hex and throw a knife. And it's like, oh man, I didn't see that coming at all.
Yeah.
And I think having it be ranged is really going to make this be an annoying card, because it's going to come out of nowhere and all of a sudden just ruin your day. Like, oh, you've got, a plus dice thing if you're in cover, and you've got, plus you've
Do
got
you have
Glory
Fighter's
Seeker.
Ferocity or Glory Seeker? Like,
Yeah.
oh my god,
And
like
it's
all of a
like,
sudden this is
uh-oh.
super dangerous. Yeah.
So yeah, I really like the card. I definitely got caught out by it really badly in our game, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh no, you can make an extra attack.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that one will probably be an auto include as well.
Yeah. Hit me with an upgrade.
Yeah.
What upgrades in this faction did you like?
There's a few, but the one that I chose was rapid fire. This
Yeah, good.
is so
Good.
it's a little iffy just because it's restricted to Psylark only, but
Yeah.
this is one that we've seen used before, but it's sometimes restricted to once per turn. So
Hmm.
this is a reaction after this fighter's activation in which they made their ranged attack. In his case, it's this repeater hand bow attack action. Um, and then it just says you can make it again. And conveniently, and I think correctly in this case, they did not put the restriction to say you can only do this once per round because
Yeah.
like it's not an amazing attack. And so this upgrade makes it really worthwhile because then every time you activate him to shoot, you're shooting twice.
And not just shooting twice at your choice of targets. You can shoot
Yeah.
at one, then shoot at the other. So
Yep.
a lot of potential with this. You can lay damage on several fighters to set up inspires for everybody else. If you manage to hit with your first one, you can inspire yourself by just attacking that person again. Like,
Yep.
man,
Yeah.
lot of options here.
It's sort of a Swiss Army knife kind of an upgrade, but
Yeah.
having it be restricted to only one fighter, it's not going to be an auto include. I don't think. I think people will be really like torn about whether they want this, and I like that that's a design space that's like, hey, we've got this cool strong effect, but you may not actually play it.
100%. This is what you want on a fighter restricted card: is a powerful effect that you'll get burned by if that fighter has died. Like
Yep.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, real good.
How about you?
Yeah, I picked one. It was called Voidling. This is a
Mhm.
Denizen card.
Good
We haven't
one.
seen anything that specifically interacts with the Denizen keyword, but it is out there. It's on such famous cards as Shadowkeeper.
Yeah.
uh, this one says single supports are successes for attacks that target a fighter adjacent to or in cover. And single supports are successful in defense if this fighter is in or adjacent to cover. I think this would be the heat. If it just like you would think about taking it if it only had the defensive bump, but because it also has
Yeah.
the offensive bump, I think it's real great. And being in or adjacent, that's a lot of the board. Like,
It is a ton of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. And we're entering the realm of like, all right, are people going to start delving to get Shadow off of here? I think they will against this warband if you can.
Yeah.
And that's powerful in and of itself. So I
Yeah.
thought this was a real fun card. I got it on my leader, and I was set to really kind of rampage through most of your warband, and was on my way to doing that until I didn't.
Yeah. I
So
mean, it's really scary.
yeah,
I will say, and like that card is very similar to what was it called back in Shadespire? It's Helpful
helpful
Whispers.
whispers. Oh, got there both at the same time. All
Yeah,
right,
that
cool.
that card a little better, I guess, on the offense because it was just you always counted single supports as long as you weren't already supported. I think.
Yeah. I think
Um,
you had to not have anyone next to you. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Either way, yeah.
Ancient
But
history.
point is that's a good card. We
Yeah.
were using that a lot. It's basically that
Yeah.
in most cases. Plus,
Yeah.
you also have a defensive bonus. It's
Yeah.
like okay,
Yeah. Yes,
didn't
please. Yeah.
probably need that, but I'll definitely take it. Um, I think there's going to be a lot of situations where this warband gets into spots where it's like, hey, I'm on guard in cover with a support. I'm now counting every single face of the defense die as a success. So you're going to need to either out crit me or just like sheer number of successes to be able to
Yeah.
hit, and that could become an interesting like way that they gain some survivability despite having fairly low wounds to start and fairly low defense dice to start.
Yeah. Uh, And that's as deep as we're going to get on that warband right now. I thought they were a ton of fun to play. I got to pull off some real cool movement shenanigans.
Yeah.
I was also getting like a little fancier than needed. I was like getting ready to do the shadow ambush. I'm like, I'm going to appear in this shadow. I was like, well, that's literally 2 hexes away. I could just move there normally, but I
Yeah.
did it, Um, so, but I was lining up against your Clawpack.
Yeah.
You want to give me a rundown of those fighters?
Yes, sir. So it's 5 fighters. You've got the 3 larger, sort of more veteran rats, and then you've got the 2 up and coming rats. And they uh convenient well let's see, entertainingly, I guess will be the word. They tie the sort of story of these guys together very nicely, where you've got these 3 assassins who are like veterans and well respected, and then the 2 little guys who are like, I'm gonna outdo you, and then the boss is just like, oh, you're both useless.
real,
um
real, Turash and
yeah, Narvia.
Narvia vibes going on here. Yeah.
Yeah. So the leader here, we've got Slink, Skittershank. So they all start with 5 move, which is
Oof.
crazy. Super, super fast. He starts on 2 dodge with 4 wounds, so he is as hard to deal with as just about any fighter that we've seen in the game on their uninspired side, which is pretty crazy. And then his attack action is range 1, 3 fury for 2 damage, but it has Grievous, so
Yeah.
he's a decent amount of the time going to be 3 damage leader to start, which is pretty scary.
Yeah.
And he has the marked for death rule, which is shared with the other assassin in the warband. So this is an effect that only applies when you're targeting leaders, but you get to reroll one of your attack dice in this fighter's attack action. When you're trying to kill leaders, that feels like a really nice thing to have. I think there's going to be some situations where that 1 extra reroll is probably what gets you over the hump to get a successful hit, and that successful hit will likely get you that kill.
Yeah.
And I think they did a nice job here with giving them Fury and a reroll plus Grievous, rather than just doing like straight 3 damage. It feels appropriate for the fighters. So it's like you can go fish for the crits, and if you get it, you're probably hitting, and then you're probably doing more damage. But if you don't get it, your attack is not actually amazing. It's just this basic.
It makes every attack feel pretty scary on the other side, I will say, because I was like, well, I'm about to die like here. And you killed poor Velissa before she ever stepped out of her starting hex.
Yeah.
But
I was able to push right next to her and start smashing her face. So it felt pretty nasty, having the ability to just Grievous for 3 right out the gate.
Yeah.
So inspired, he doesn't gain a whole lot. He gets 1 extra fury on his attacks, so you really don't need to get Skittershank inspired for him to be scary, which is nice that he's just there to sort of do work for you right from the get-go.
Yeah.
And I guess since I mentioned inspiring, it is pretty much universal that they are checking to see if an enemy leader is out of action or has 4 or more wound counters for inspiring. The other state that's checked is for the non-assassins, and they only need to make an attack action that targets a leader to inspire. So there's sort of this push and pull of like, if you want to get your assassins inspired, you need to kill a leader, and for the other guys, you just have to make the attacks. So if you like go too hard, I guess you could actually block yourself from inspiring. But I think that's sort of a, oh no, I can't inspire my dangle bros because I already killed your leader.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think even they Skulk and Crouched are they'll inspire if 1 or more enemy leaders is out of action. So
yeah, that's never mind, you're right, they'll all check for the out of action. So it's a little harder, I guess, for the assassins to inspire, and then it's you have that secondary condition. So
Yeah, but they get less out of it. So
yeah. Well, actually, I think we'll see about that when we get there. So then the secondary assassin is Snipe Padpaw. He's the smoke bomb guy that we were talking about before. He's got the crazy um, sculpt for him. It's
drop smoke bombs, just walk away.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty nuts. So he's also 5 move, 2 dodge, but he's only 3 wounds, so he's slightly easier to hurt. He's also range 1, 3 fury for 2 damage, no grievous. He also has the marked for death rule, so he's very, very similar to Slink, but he can't jump up to 3 damage right from the start. And he has the smoke bombs reaction as well as marked for death. So his smoke bombs reaction is that after this fighter's activation, if you use the reaction, you can stagger each enemy fighter adjacent to this fighter. It's not a huge deal, but they sort of have this secondary sub theme of stagger, so it's important for those cards if you're playing in rivals, and getting an extra reroll on a fighter can actually matter quite a bit.
Yeah,
so
totally.
if
Especially if you're going all in on killing a leader here, like we can get in, maybe get some damage and stagger the leader for the killing blow to follow.
Yeah. So there's a lot of this sort of setup situations in this warband. It feels like where it's like you're not probably doing a whole lot in like one-shotting people, but you have a lot of tricks for trying to make sure that when you do bring in Slink, he's probably getting that kill for you.
Yeah.
And then Inspired Padpaw picks up Grievous and Cleave on his attack, which is actually quite nice. I think I'd actually prefer Cleave over +1 dice in that situation. So
sure.
Obviously, against some warbands, it won't help much, but it's still pretty nice. So those are the two sort of main guys that'll do work for you. Then you've got your 3 lesser dudes, although Creep Kin Whisper is also pretty solid. He's also 5 move, 2 dodge, 3 wounds. But he has a ranged attack. His ranged attack is 3 range, 2 smash for 1 damage, and it has a new ability on it called Barbs. Don't know if this will just be unique to him or if we'll see that again, but Barbs says as a reaction after this attack action, if it succeeded, give the target a net counter. After a fighter with 1 or more net counters makes a move action, you deal 1 damage to that fighter and remove their net counters. And then at the end of the round, you would clear all net counters if they chose not to move. So I think having a ranged attack here is pretty significant because it allows him to start throwing the net onto an enemy leader from a distance.
Sure. It means he has a threat range of 8. He can stay way at the back of your board and still be relevant.
He can pretty much hit anything on the board that you want. There's very, very few situations where he can't throw this net. And at 2 smash, it's fairly accurate, so you have a decent shot of actually getting it on. And I think the idea is that, yes, you would do this on an enemy leader, sort of to pin them down and be like, hey, you can run away if you want to, but if you do, you're going to take more damage. And then when he does Inspire, his attack also picks up Grievous. So then you have a ranged Grievous, which is always good. And he picks up the marked for death rule, which is, I guess, okay. If you're inspired before the enemy leader goes out of action. It's a little strange that he picks that up on Inspire, but it's all right.
Yeah.
And then rounding these guys out, we've got Crouched and Skulk. Skulk is the slinger. He's got also range 3, 2 smash for 1 damage. And then Crouched is range 1 with 2 fury for 2 damage, which I think is actually pretty nice that he hits for 2, because if you have any way to give him some accuracy, he can actually still do work.
Sure.
And they do both Inspire to have 2 dodge, which is pretty nice. And then Skulk does pick up Stagger and switches over to 3 Fury for his Sling.
Yeah.
Sort of a lot of text I'm realizing on all these fighters' cards. Like they all have some sort of special ability and they all do like 3 different things. So Sort of a lot to digest there and try and remember. But that's the fighters. They're doing a lot. General play styles. I think that's what we talked about before with the elves. When you were facing them, what did it feel like? You were thinking their general play styles ended up being.
Well, with 3 of yours inspiring just by attacking my leader,
Yeah.
I was like, I felt like I got to put my leader way at the back. Um, and they're so fast that if they want it, they can get it. But if they want to get at her, they are going to have to really expose themselves. So
Yeah.
I think what they did a really good job of this is making them want to kill the leader and making that be relevant. They've got some objectives and some other things that we'll talk about later that like make that really important. And in many warbands, that leader, think about the leader going down in, something like the Cunning Crew, or I mean, even the big boy factions, like in Crushes, you didn't really want to lose Crusher. He's got the you didn't want to lose Morgok. He's got the good push and all that sort of thing. Like, he's your accurate dude. If you lose him, it's a little bit harder. So I think they found a way to make something that they've been working on for 5 seasons of Underworlds of like,
Yeah.
Let's make it relevant to kill the leader. Make it work for a warband on its own. Like, it didn't feel oppressive. It didn't feel like my leader was going to automatically die, but it felt when I eventually put my leader forward, and I say eventually, I mean almost right away, I felt like I was taking a risk because that was my best fighter. I was like, I can do a lot of work with this fighter, but I'm also giving Phil the chance to inspire and to score some of his stuff. So the big thing for me was how thematic and effective it was for you to be going after a leader.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's definitely the main theme. I think they did execute pretty well there. And like you say, there's sort of this, it felt to me playing it, it was like there's this push and pull of like most of what I want and most of my glory and inspiring and stuff does come from trying to get your leader. But if I go too crazy and like just dive your leader, I'm probably just going to lose all my rats.
Right.
So I was like trying to decide like, okay, is now the time that I go for them? Like, is now the time? Like, but like you mentioned earlier, I sort of had to show some restraint and be like, okay, let's move, let's try and take what I've got and just pick up some kills along the way so we can kind of build up some upgrades, and then once we're ready, go get the kill. Which it felt very thematic. It was like there's this sort of razor's edge, sort of stalking mentality of like, I'm gonna get them eventually if they don't get me first. And you almost got me first. You killed 3 of my 5 rats
It
before
was
I
looking like I was
turned the
headed for a
tables.
blowout. Yeah.
But yeah, and then I guess the only other thing that I felt like, and I realized this as we were playing, and I kind of felt a little bit bad about not having realized it sooner, was that they really do, at least in their rivals deck, care about stagger, and there are tools in the deck to allow for the stagger.
Sure.
I was looking at the fighter cards being like, well, one guy's got stagger, so like this seems almost impossible, and then ditching
2,
stuff.
you got one inspired fighter can stagger with his attack and the smoke
Right.
bombs.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
killed the smoke bomb guy like
There's
immediately.
during our game, I did not remember that inspired he was gonna pick up stagger. So I was thinking, oh well, I've got one fighter who can actually stagger,
Yeah.
and so this is gonna be rough. Well, it turns out there's actually a lot of ways to make that not be so hard. So an interesting thing, something that we haven't really seen before. So I don't even really know what to think of it yet. I think it needs more testing, but
Yeah.
I like it. It's a different way of adding additional accuracy without just being +1 dice.
Sure.
All right. Well, so that's some fighters. That's some playstyle thoughts from our game. Were there some cards that you liked from the game that we played?
Yeah, one card that like I kind of blew the game wide open for us was an objective, and I was talking about how your abilities on your fighter cards and your upgrades and different things. Like your Inspire condition really cared about killing my leader. And one of those things was the objective collateral damage. This is an end phase card.
Mhm.
It's a duel, and it requires one or more enemy leaders to be out of action, and four or more fighters, friendly or otherwise, to be out of action. And importantly, it scores 3 glory, right? So
Yeah.
what this does is it rewards you for like going hell for leather to kill a leader. It has some, a little taste of like pure carnage or corn cares not from other warbands that are just like, hey, are a bunch of people dead? Cool. This doesn't need that many people to die. It just needs to make sure that the enemy leader is dead. And so I'd pushed my leader forward as a good range 2 fighter and done a lot of work, but then um, ended up taking a couple hits and going down. The kill itself scored 3 thanks to a surge in the bounty. And then I was like, whoa, that's rough. Like he's back in it. And then we got to the end phase and you're like, and I also scored collateral damage. You're like, oh my God. Like, I was really far ahead. And now I'm like,
Yeah.
behind. Now I got to figure out how to catch up. What I love about this objective being in this warband is that all of a sudden, like you really care about whether your leader lives or dies. Like in retrospect, I would be more conservative with my leader, even though I know she can do a lot of work. I can't risk her as early as I did. I can't put her up to that many attacks because they were low percentage attacks, some of the early ones.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take, like if one of them gets through, then all of a sudden I'm one shot away from being killed. So
Yeah.
I love the pressure that it puts on that game and how thematic it is for the warband.
Very much so. I think this is probably my favorite objective that they have, and I think that it's probably always going to be included. I have a hard time thinking that you wouldn't take this. Like 3 glory that you can score in any end phase so long as you can achieve killing the enemy leader. Like
Right.
the 4 fighters out of action thing is probably going to happen. Most games,
Guaranteed going to happen.
yeah.
Because the leader's already dead, so you just need 3 more.
Yeah,
And guess
and
what? You
some
got
of
some
those,
schlubs who are
yeah,
going to die.
you got some little 2 wound nothing
Yeah.
fighters. So it feels crazy. I can't even imagine, like, and I guess this is something I hadn't realized until after our game and later sort of just looking through the cards, but they kind of feel more like Reavers than I thought.
Yeah.
They're very aggressive, very like we're willing to throw rats away, which is actually a very, Skaven thing to do and be
Sure.
like, and it actually even says, I'm actually looking at the card text here right now, and collateral damage, it's flavor text. To ensure a target's death, there are few prices Clan Eshin will not pay. And it's
Yeah.
just like, yep, that actually felt very much like how the game went, where it was like, yeah, it didn't really matter that all the little guys are dead.
Right.
Slink got the job done, and that's all that mattered.
Sure did. Yeah.
So very much enjoy that one. In terms of another objective that I actually did really like in the warband, and I think is also very flavorful, is Unsurprising Fate. I like this one both in how you score it and just in like some of the cover art and stuff. But so this is a score in an end phase if 1 or more friendly minions are out of action, and I guess importantly to note that the 2 little dangle bro guys, Skulk and Crouched, are both minions. So you have
Yeah.
one of those guys go down, and you can score this in any phase, which I think is nice because it's like they're likely to die kind of at some point, and so this kind of feels like a guaranteed one glory end phase. And then the art for it is I can't actually tell. You only see the back of the rats. You can't really tell which one it is. I would
You
guess
don't
that
recognize
it's...
this Clawpack by their butts yet?
No, but I'm gonna
Okay.
guess it's Crouched because it kind of looks like he has a hood.
Okay.
But he's like in Hrothgorn's trap.
Yeah. Definitely got bushwhacked there.
which feels pretty on point because they have 2 wounds. So it's like, yep, this is probably how they would die to Hrothgorn's warband. But I don't know. It like it's looking at that, looking at the collateral damage, and then thinking of putting in something like the Carnage,
Pure Carnage.
Pure Carnage. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's
Oh
already
man.
something brewing there where you've got three
Right.
end phases that just check out of action fighters, which is very similar to how Reavers play, at
Yeah.
least the way I like to play them. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I am already excited about that and definitely looking forward to brewing something up. How about a Gambit? You got a Gambit of theirs that you like?
Yeah. There was well, it kind of feeds into the objective you just talked about. Redirected attack. As a reaction, play this card during an attack that targets a friendly assassin. After the determined success step of that, if that attack succeeds, choose one friendly minion that is within 2 hexes of that assassin. That minion is taken out of action. The combat sequence ends. So this is a thing where like your most important fighters are going to be those, the two, Pad Paw and your leader. Um, and as long as a minion is close by, you can. It has a taste of that shared pain from
Mm-hmm.
the Dread Pageant. What's great about this is that you got to wait for them to succeed, and you are often on like two dodge very likely in cover. If you're playing championship, there's a good chance you're on guard because why wouldn't you take Shadowkeeper? That sort of thing. So like it can be really hard to hit one of these assassins.
Yeah.
And then when you finally do, it could be like, okay, I came through with enough to kill him. You're like, yeah, but guess what? You killed Crouched. You're like, God dang, it's so bad.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's pretty loose. Like Crouch just has to be within, or one of the minions just has to be within two. And again, I think it's pretty balanced because if both minions are dead, then this is a dead card.
Yep.
Uh, there are ways to modify it. Like if you are bringing something that turns somebody into an assassin, then all of a sudden this is a card that can be used. Say if you give Kin Whisper some upgrade, now all of a sudden Kin Whisper can protect himself with the presence of other minions,
Yeah.
or with of the two minions. So it's a card. I don't know that it's going to make it into like championship decks in general, but I love that it's there, and I know that anytime, until deck building settles out with this warband, anytime that I play against them, I'm going to be worried that I'm finally getting a hit through on the boss to take him out, and instead I'm just going to kill a schlub with a sling. So
Yeah. I mean the Slanesh one gets a lot of play, and I
yeah,
have to imagine this will probably be similar.
sure,
Because you know,
yeah.
saving an important fighter for somebody who's less important is a really big deal.
Crucially, it ends the attack sequence. So
Yeah.
like if it's round 2 or round 3 and your boss is next to my boss, we're adjacent to each other. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to take the first activation, kill you. Not only do I not kill you, but I don't get to drive you back because the attack sequence ended and you're adjacent to me, and now you're going to get your swing
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
So
So no drive back.
there's a positioning aspect of all. Real good. What
Very,
what
very
gambit
solid.
would you get your eyes on?
I really like Skittering Blur. This is similar to what is it? It's something Shadows from the Ideneth, but uh, or I don't know. It's the one that made it so you can't target a specific fighter. In this case, it
Like Forgotten
says,
Nightmares or something like that.
yeah, in this case, it's in the next activation, attack actions cannot target friendly assassins.
Oof. Yeah.
Pretty rough. Since if your fighters are already inspired, then that's going to mean only your Dangle Bros can even be targeted. And if you happen to have some upgrades that turn people into assassins that you're playing with, you could make it so your whole warband can't be targeted, and that
Right.
also feels really nasty. Um, so I really like how this plays out. Like it again, it's in most cases, it's just going to mean that your opponent has to redetermine targets. Like it's like, okay, I can't go after the guys I wanted to go after, but I could still go after one of these little Dangle Bros, or I'll draw a power card or something instead.
Right.
Um, but having that kind of control to be like, I can see the writing on the wall. I know that you're going to be trying to like power up. You can even do like I'm a huge fan of doing with damage reduction cards from the Corn War bands, where it's like, all right, you played a thing, I play a thing, you play a thing, I delve a thing, you do another thing, and it's like, okay, I've buffed this fighter up, and then I'm like, okay, and you can't target my assassins, and it's like,
Yeah. Yeah. Like, oh, cool. I've got a really accurate high damage attack that's going to go kick Crouch in the nose. Like,
yeah,
awesome. That's
yep.
exactly what I wanted to
So
do.
I am pretty happy to see something like that. It's sort of a supplemental survival card, but it's not just directly a like, hey, your attack just doesn't do any damage. Although they do have one of those as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, it's actually feels a little oppressive that they have both, but we'll see. And then upgrades. We're getting down to the last few cards here that we're going to talk about today. What jumped out at you as a cool upgrade that these guys get to use?
Yeah, I mean, this one is not as exciting, but mostly because I'm leaving some of the other stuff out there. But I did kind of enjoy this. I don't think you even had a chance to put this on, but we just discussed it after the fact. There's Eshin Throwing Stars, and it's just a range 3 Fury, 1 damage attack, but it has stagger. And what I like is that on Speed 5 fighters, like this onto one of them that doesn't already have ranged attack really like just makes insane threat range. Getting this on, I know, I take it back. You did put this
I
on, didn't
did.
you?
Yeah,
Yeah. You, and it actually was crucial because you knocked me out of a cover hex, which was really
I
important to me.
sure did.
Yeah. Damn.
It
Yeah.
actually, when I played it, it felt like a really big deal that I got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. It might have been game defining because you were down to one fighter. I had
I did.
two, and I had a fighter with a range attack, so I was going to be able to keep plinking at you, and then you put this on, knocked me out of range, and then I had to decide what my next play would be. Because not only did you knock me out of cover, which is a defensive thing, but you staggered me. And so my play on the next one was to go on guard to try and increase my defense, get rid of the stagger, but it meant I didn't do anything offensively, and you were able to close it out by committing to the attack on the next one.
Yeah.
I think just increasing range and then like stagger when it's coming from ranged is that little bit more powerful. So
Yeah.
yeah, pretty boss. What
Um,
about you?
uh, so I'm gonna do two because I think they're both really cool,
Sure.
but one of them is like good, and one of them is just, hey, that's a neat thing that you can do.
Yeah.
So we'll start with neat. So this is ricocheting Triskel or Triskella.
Yeah.
So this is also a throwing star one. This has to go on Creep Kin Whisper, so already probably quite a bit weaker than what you would expect. Um, so this is a reaction upgrade after he makes his attack. So not just any attack; it has to be the attack on his fighter card. So 1 damage. If he succeeds, though, you get to choose one other enemy fighter within 2 hexes of the target and deal 1 damage to that chosen fighter. We talked a bit about this one after the game, and I it's very restrictive, but I feel like it could get really nasty because it's repeatable ping damage, as long as fighters are somewhat close to each other, which I feel like anymore nowadays happens a lot. Um, and the nice thing is that you could have situations where it's like, okay, the target I want to hit, the leader, whatever, is buffed up, bunch of extra wounds, bunch of defense upgrades. They're on guard, in cover. Like it's just super hard to hit them. But then there's this little, dangle bro over here. So I'll
Mm,
throw this 1 damage thing at them and then bounce undodgeable, unblockable damage over onto the leader and just
yeah.
ping away at them.
Yeah.
Um,
Make it a Bahanar who's all stacked up, or a
yeah,
um, Glissette who's got all the defense in the world. And like, I don't care. I'm gonna go hit, you know, Slake Slash, who is just on one shield. I'll do a little bit of damage and ping over to you. Yeah, I think it's like situationally awesome, and whether that's enough to actually take it or not. But
yeah,
it's a fun design.
and it's super thematic, right? Because he's got
Yeah,
in on his model, he's got this like crazy like poison dipped throwing star, and it's like,
yeah,
okay, cool. We get to actually see him do something cool if you bring this card. Now, like I
yeah,
said, it restricted to one fighter, so probably don't actually see it that much, but it feels fun and it's something I want to try. And then in one that I just actually really liked, and I think is probably going to be really gross. So this is called Prehensile Tail.
Mm.
So this is an upgrade you can put on anybody, and you can re-roll up to 2 attack dice if the attack roll for this fighter's attack actions, if this fighter has one or more attack action upgrades. But it importantly does not say that you need to be making the attack from the attack action upgrade. They just have to have an attack action upgrade. So you could get this from an illusion. You could get this from like slapping a ranged attack onto somebody, and then later on they just come in with their melee attack with a bunch of rerolls. Like 2 rerolls is a really
That's a
big
lot.
deal.
Like that's enough
Uh,
to incentivize the combo play. Like any combo cards are always a little iffy, but
yeah,
you got it, and you it was helping you trigger Grievous, which was a really big deal.
yeah. So I mean, you put this on Slink when he's inspired, and or even before he's inspired. If you put this on Slink and he attacks a leader and he's got the upgrade, he can reroll all his dice.
Yeah,
And he's got Grievous, so you're like, yeah, I want to fish for as many crits as I possibly can. So
yeah.
reroll all dice is pretty crazy. Um, I don't know. I was just very surprised that it was like, hey, reroll 2 dice on top of already having rerolls. This is gonna be crazy, and it was. I feel like a lot of the time when I needed to get Grievous, the reason I was able to pick it up is because I had all these rerolls.
I mean, I think it was game deciding. It was the
Yeah,
when he got the kill he needed at the end against my
yeah. I think I rerolled into double
Gray Blood.
crits.
Yeah, you rolled you had a lot of dice, but only had one success. And I was like, okay, I got out of there. Like, oh, I do have 2 rerolls. I was like, okay, it's fine. Double crit. I was like, oh crap.
Yeah.
All right, never mind.
Well, I guess I'll just take my toys and go home.
Yeah. And that was the kill shot for the
Yeah.
game. So yeah. Cool. Again, anything combo related, you're gonna look twice at to see whether it really makes the cut. But cool. Yeah, very fun. And it's fun to think about, like, let me look at what attack action upgrades are out there that would really benefit from having like a 2 dice reroll, right? Like
Yeah.
they probably exist out there. Like, oh, this would be really cool, it's just not very accurate. Oh, do I get 2 rerolls? Sounds sweet.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Or, I mean, so the Phantom Darts is already 3 dice with
Oh, right.
Grievous, but if you're targeting somebody who's in cover, you get +1 dice. And it's like,
Sure.
okay, so 4 dice
Okay.
with 2
Okay.
rerolls with Grievous. That feels pretty
Yeah.
gross at range.
Yeah. Oh
So
yeah. You're
yeah.
probably getting that crit. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's a lot of stuff you could probably do with that, and
Sure.
yeah, it'll be scary. This is actually something that we had sort of chatted about with some of our local folks about in our Discord. Sort of some speculation about like what is it gonna, what are these guys gonna be like once we knew that their deal was being assassins? And there's some like, well, they're probably, it's probably gonna be like either super super like horrible to play against because they're just going to blow your leader up every single game, or it'll be like completely nothing. And I was thinking like, no, actually I think it's going to be both at all times. Like you're going to be threatening that you're going to blow up their leader at all times, and so your opponent's always probably going to be on edge, but the actuality is that it probably will not happen in like even half of your games, and it'll be this sort of like either you blow somebody out or you get blown out kind of situation.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't know necessarily if that came through because we didn't know the warbands very well, but it certainly felt like I had you thinking about stuff a lot.
Yeah. It was a fun. I feel like I thought about it more after the fact than during. Like I think I
Mm-hmm.
underestimated what a big deal the kill would be. Like I said, I think you scored when you eventually killed my leader, it was with your minion, but your boss was supporting, so you got
Yeah, I got the
the
other one.
kill and the 2 glory surge, and then it triggered that collateral damage, and so it was effectively like a 6 glory kill, which is like, oh man, like blew
Yeah,
the
it was
game
a
wide open.
really
And
big deal.
yeah, and so then in game 2, man, I would be just like like horrified with my leader in a way that I probably should have been in that game. So it was cool.
Yeah,
Um,
very fun.
yeah, yeah, man, I had a blast, and I think I remember saying in this, I don't know, we ended on something like 12-8 for the claw pack, something in that
Yeah,
range.
yeah.
And but it was pretty close, like until part of the way, maybe halfway through round three. I think you made the right choice, and you know put a little risk on the line, and then lock the win in for yourself. But I felt like both warbands were really thematic. I mean, we've already said this. I felt like the setting was thematic. I felt like they did as good a job as they've ever done with these rivals decks.
Yeah.
I didn't have like a ton of cards. I remember when you and I played Beastgrave kind of fresh out of the box. I was playing the Grass Racks, and I kept drawing cards. It's like, well, this guy's already dead, or this guy is like this is a really bad fighter specific upgrade for a guy, like that's probably going to die anyway, or is
Yeah.
already dead. This felt like the cards I was drawing was like, okay, like I might not include this in championship, but this has play right now. It felt really good. I think they did a great job with this. I was really happy, really excited about it. I came into this super hyped and was not disappointed.
Yeah, not at all. And like, despite the fact that these warbands certainly have more things going on with them than a lot of the other starter box warbands, it
Yeah,
it it felt fairly approachable. And I think even if you were fairly new to the game, it wouldn't be too hard to pick up on the basics of what to do with these guys, and a lot of their cards sort of just push you in the direction of like, this is what this deck is going to be doing. So
yeah,
like, just trust the cards. Like I said before, I was like, oh, I'm not going to have enough stuff to score this stagger objective. Well,
yeah,
turned out I was wrong. The deck actually was built to be able to score that stuff,
yeah,
surprisingly.
yeah,
Um, which is cool. Like, if you don't
yeah,
know, like, and the only reason I was thinking that is because I like have this preconceived notion of how they generally construct things in the past seasons.
yeah,
And it's like, yeah, you probably have to rely on this one fighter. Well, actually, no, that's not the
yeah,
case. And they made it so that the deck plays correctly. And like, all the cover hex stuff certainly seems like it would just flow naturally for the elves. And I think if that is the direction we are heading for rivals, I think that's just going to be a really good thing for new players.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you could sit two new players down with this and be like, hey, Skaven player, try to kill his leader. Hey, elf player, try to get in the cover. And like, that's the coaching they need to like have to like unlock a lot of their cards.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot more nuance to that, like the deeper you get, but like you could give that, one sentence pep talk and they'd have a sense of like, okay, like now I kind of know what I want to do, and it's going to unlock a lot of the things that they have.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. I think we're pretty hot on it. There is no way we have time for
No, no,
universals,
no,
so we're gonna leave that down the line. Do you have anything else before we start wrapping up here?
I think just, and I mean, it was probably evident from how we're talking about it, but I highly recommend this box for anybody, but definitely for new players.
Yeah,
If you're coming into the game like, and you're unsure of where you want to start, this is a great place to start. Like,
yeah,
I think the core boxes have always been a good value, but the warbands are not always spectacular straight out of the box. I feel like sometimes they go vanilla with the core boxes, which makes sense. But
hmm,
then it's like, oh, we get another Stormcast warband that doesn't, necessarily do a lot. Um, and I think maybe that can be a little off-putting for people when they're starting out. And I feel like these are two very dynamic warbands that will probably get people pretty interested in the game, so long as they probably have somebody there to help them a little bit, because, like I
yeah,
said, a little bit more complicated. So
yeah,
highly recommended.
yeah. We get one review copy, and it's your turn to have it. So we were doing this. I had to write down notes for the cards that I was excited about. I am like 1 minute after Warhammer store opens. I am pre-ordering this because
Yeah.
I'm that stoked for it. So looking forward to it. If you want to share how excited you are about this box, you can get in touch with us at WTHcast or whatthehexcast@gmail.com. As a reminder, if you are close enough to make it reasonable, come play with us May 1st. look it up. We'd love to see you. We'd love to shake your hand. I've already extended some of the out of towners. We're going to try and get together for some food and a drink afterwards if they've got the time. We'd really like you to be a part of our community. We're real proud of the positive things we got going here. If you are into more than just Warhammer Underworlds, you go check out themortalrealms.com. You can take a look at our content. We talk about the background of Age of Sigmar on the story phase. We talk about Path to Glory. We talk about Dogs of Warcry. We talk about Warcry. All those different podcasts and content there. Plenty of stuff for you. And thanks to the Mortal Realms Network for having us on there, for helping us out. All the patrons who contribute to the Mortal Realms, you're kind of contributing to the network as a whole. It's awesome to be part of that. You can come be part of our community on the Discord. We don't really have much that's closed behind patron stuff. So if you just want to come hang out and not be a patron, we'd love to have you too. Coming up, we're just going to keep knocking down more of this content. We got the Exile Dead. We got Universals galore. Got all kinds of stuff to hit.
Yeah.
We're already running along, but I promised last episode that I would bust out the flavor text quiz. So Phil, I'm going to give you some flavor text.
All right.
You tell me what card this is. I'm going to give you the answer basically right away, but listener, see if you can be better than Phil on this. So this is a card. Mork's warty backside. Would you look at all this loot, lads? Quote attributed to Zarbag. Do you know what card that is?
Is that their like hold all objectives card? I don't remember the
No,
name.
it's available in Essentials if that helps.
It's available in it's Great Gains.
There you go.
The Essentials gave it away.
Yeah.
Knowing that it wasn't actually from Zarbag's kits.
Yeah. If we're gonna try that for a little while, people let me know if you like that a little bit. Recommended listening. We're going from a track. This is by Ghostface Killa, featuring Raekwon, the RZA, and Inspect the Deck of the Wu-Tang Clan, and this is Assassination Day, appropriate for Nethermaze. So we're gonna catch you soon. We may be back as fast as 1 week. We're gonna do what we can. So for What the Hex, I've been Davy,
and I've been Phil.
Let me remove this tangle of chords from on my keyboard. I don't think I'm planning on typing much, but this is a little out of hand.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, it's tough to build decks for anything but the new stuff. Like,
I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't care. I'm just gonna grab something. Probably just bring whatever I've got thrown together already, and just because I just want to play with the new guys. So.
The kids are upstairs doing some kind of cheering thing. I don't know what is happening. I'm just it's happy sounds, not angry sounds. So we'll not intervene at this time.
Sure.
All right. God, can you hear them at all?
No, not at all.
Okay, good. Whatever it is kind of insane. All right.